What's up?
So you were in detention today.
It would appear so. And I didn't know this until later, until I saw the memes. Today is actually National Detention Day because it's the date that the kids in the movie The Breakfast Club
Oh yeah, that's
had
why I
deten-
saw those memes.
on March 24th was the date of the Breakfast Club having detention. Of course, that was a Saturday, obviously, and this was not. But yeah, I had to go see somebody in an elementary school that had been converted. They shut it down in the 1970s. The lady told me they didn't have enough kids. It's a small town. They didn't have enough kids to justify the expense, and so that school district, or however they do it here, got rolled into another town's, and then it stood empty for a long time. And you could just smell the asbestos in this place. And this lady, like, all elementary schools smell the exact same. That's just kind of what it was like, the cleaning products.
Isn't
And
that what I said to you this morning?
yeah,
That they all smell the
every
same?
elementary school in America smells the same. Exactly right. But then the township bought it, and that's where their headquarters is now. But I had to take some pictures and laugh because I was having flashbacks of school. I was like, I've only been here 10 minutes. I'm already in detention.
Did you
So
get a lot of detention?
yeah, I've got a report on Saturday. Got to go in for.
No, I'm saying did you as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well, you in elementary school they didn't call it detention, and depending on what grade we're talking about here. Like, I remember a third grade. Your warning was you had to go up and write your name on the board, and then if you had a check, that was like 10 minutes after school, which was forever. And then two checks was an extra 5 or 10, whatever it was. You had to sit there with the teacher and whatever. And then so many you finally you got your parents got called or whatever it was. But
I don't think I ever got in trouble in high school or elementary
I
school.
had detention, not very often. I can't think of too many times where I had it for like behavioral stuff. It was usually for like not wanting to do the freaking work, or not paying
Right.
attention, or talking in class, or something like that. Nothing bad, just like goofing off or talking to somebody I wasn't supposed to be talking to or something.
Surprise,
But
surprise, I was actually like the teacher's pet. So yeah, that was never a thing for me.
you were the teacher's pet?
Always. I think every grade except sixth grade when I was new here and or new in Texas. But
That was in Central Sixth, and that was
yeah,
a whole different ball of wax in the Brownwood
that was
ISD.
a free for all madhouse.
Yes, it was.
But besides that, I think I was usually a teacher's pet, so I never had detention of any sort.
Wow.
Yeah, but when
You're
you
the
showed me
person
the
I should have been
pictures of
sitting
that,
next to.
oh no, I would have told on you.
Oh, you were snitching?
I'm no, I'm kidding. I never snitched. I actually did people's papers for them, so I
Oh,
never
then I
snitched.
definitely needed you sitting next to me.
Right? Hey
So,
y'all,
hey, y'all, this is Ryan.
I'm Robyn.
And we at Exit the Echo Chamber are talking about getting in detention, getting in trouble
Or not.
in school.
Or not. What's
What's
going
going
on in
on?
your world?
Uh, just work and regular stuff, but been trying to keep up with all the craziness in the news. It's getting harder because my job is getting busier and so much stuff's going on in the news with detention centers, and not to and I mean that in the not school detention manner. Shootings and
What are you going to
DC
talk about
statehood, all
before you
kinds of.
just name it all?
I'm going to name it all. What's the what? Well, you're in Colorado. What's going on in Colorado with the Boulder shooting? What's everybody saying?
I didn't really check today, but really just remembrances of the 10 victims. A lot of outrage because Boulder had tried to implement bans on AR-15s and high capacity magazines, and a judge had overturned that just 10 days before.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sadness for all the people that were just doing their thing and lost their lives. And of course, there were immediately the people who were like, oh, this is a false flag operation, which I'm sorry, but fuck anybody who says that, because there are people that lost their lives. I know people through degrees of separation who know people or have people that lost their lives.
Mhm.
So I have no tolerance for that at all.
Right.
It's ridiculous. There are also people who were quick to point out that his family is Syrian. There's rumors flying that he just came back from Syria. No, he moved here when he was a year old. At the end of the day, he managed to take 10 lives. So that's what people are actually, there's been a lot about the victims concentrating on their legacy. So
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, and to be honest with you, I have, since I'm driving and traveling, dealing with the day job so much, I'm not as on edge of the news as I probably should be, or as that I try to be. Um, but did definitely see that. Didn't see as much about the victims as I probably should. Um, but I did ask you that one question about that one
yeah,
person,
no,
and
no.
so good to know there. But I don't know about the thing that the judge struck down in Boulder. But as far as high cap magazines, they are already illegal in Colorado. Colorado banned high cap magazines about 10 years ago. And then the AR-15, to my knowledge, first off, I'm not 100% sure that it was an AR-15. I haven't seen that. I've heard it, but I haven't seen it, because at first they came out and said it was a 1911, which is a handgun.
I've seen several stories and several reports that it was an AR-15 and that he had purchased an AR-15 6 days prior.
Okay. Okay, here's where I'm careful with that. I haven't seen that, and I don't doubt you, but anytime there's one of these incidences, the immediate knee-jerk go-to gun that the media jumps on is either AR-15 or Glocks every single time. So it used to be AK-47s, and then it just evolved into being AR-15s. So it's possible. He was already on an FBI watch list anyway, and should not have been allowed to purchase a gun. I definitely agree.
Was he on an FBI watch list? I did not read that.
Excuse me. Hang on one second. Sorry. Frog in my throat. The FBI, yes, the FBI has been watching him, according to sources. So
wait, sources you know, or sources in the news? Because I've also seen sources saying that he came back from Syria, but that was
no, he did not come back from Syria, but because of some of the stuff that he has posted on social media, anti-Trump people, or excuse me, anti-Trump stuff, and a lot of rhetoric, anti-government, and whatever else. Supposedly, he has appeared on the FBI's radar.
Supposedly.
So it is most likely that he did illegally purchase this firearm. So I don't know the remainder of it. I don't have much to say about him in general.
I'm looking that up because I'm pretty sure he illegally purchased it, but I'm looking it up because there have been a lot of things that have been said the last couple of podcasts that have turned out not to be true. So
if he has a mental illness, now if he did a private sale and has no priors, I'm going to say this strictly from a legal perspective. If he had no priors and no history of mental illness, and he did a face-to-face, person-to-person sale, private citizen to private citizen, that would be legal. But whoa, sorry, that was my timer. That means my dryer's done. Are you looking it up?
I am, because I'm tired of things.
I'm almost positive he did a person-to-person.
Validated.
But he didn't. He did not buy that at a store. Do we know the shooter's age?
He was 21.
Okay, that's legal to purchase 21. A rifle. Yeah, that is legal to purchase a rifle.
I'm trying to find it.
In any event, laws were broken. I'm not sure that the one that the judge struck down would have changed anything. Everything he did that day was already illegal. So that would be...
Well, AR-15s would have been illegal in Boulder County. Not that would have stopped him, but until 10 days
I'm not
prior.
sure that Boulder County has the authority to do that. It's
so it's interesting that you say that, because the last podcast we had, you said there were how many gun laws on the books?
They're north of 20,000.
So I did some investigating on that.
Mm-hmm. That's federal, state, and local.
No, it's not. It was
Mhm.
started in the 1970s by a congressman who said that, and it's been repeated as fact, much like Karl Rove says, if you say something enough, and Karl
Mhm.
Rove was famous for this.
Mhm.
It's actually a term called roving.
Okay.
If you say a lie enough, it becomes fact to
Okay. So
people.
let's say there's not
So that
20,000. Let's say there's
that
20.
so there's 300 between federal and states. Over
Mhm.
40 states will not allow municipalities or counties to make laws that are stricter than the federal or state. So that 20,000 number is unequivocally not true. It was started by a senator in the 60s or 70s. It was
Mhm.
repeated by an NRA president. It was repeated by Ronald Reagan. It's not true.
Okay.
So I
Very
just
well
want to get
then.
that out there.
All right. Then let's just say there's 300. There is nothing that any other law would have done, and that I know of, that would have prevented this from happening. Another knee-jerk law banning another weapon
So
would not have stopped him.
so tell me,
Mhm.
weren't rifles like the AR-15 illegal for several years
Nope.
under Republican presidents?
Nope. That was signed under Bush. They were not illegal to own. Here's the thing: AR-15s haven't even been popular
Okay, but wait.
until what you're talking about is the 1994 weapons ban. It banned imports of weapons like in those days. The big monster that everybody was trying to get rid of was the AK-47. That was, but there's more of those now than there. That is, they banned the importation of high capacity magazines. You could get domestic made ones in some certain instances.
So it was harder to get those guns though
No, I'll get
with
to
the
that.
import. Well,
They
I don't want to sit here for a
domestically
lesson.
domestically built ones were legal, so they banned the imports of them. They banned things like pistol grips on rifles. They banned a bunch of stuff that was aesthetic, like the bayonet lugs on the end of an AR-15, for instance. They banned a whole bunch of different stuff, but they didn't outright ban the weapons or the rifles themselves. It
So
was
it was from 94 to 2004. There
it's
was a ban of sorts,
it's sunset.
and
Yes.
that ban of sorts,
Hmm.
I mean, we can tiptoe around or call it what we want,
Hmm.
but deaths by those guns dropped by a substantial amount.
Yeah, but mass shootings and gang violence, which is the majority of this type of thing,
Increased after they became
statistically,
legal again in 2004.
gang violence didn't.
School
The
shootings,
majority of mass shootings is gang violence.
school shootings, things like that
Hmm.
increased
Most of which are
exponentially
done with
after
handguns.
2004.
Columbine was done with handguns, not AR-15s.
Well, Columbine was 99, so
That was in the height of the assault ban then.
yeah, and so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like a steady increase. Columbine was the first that we all know and remember,
Hmm.
and then it steadily increased, and it increased substantially after 2004 if you look at statistics.
Right.
So I guess my question is, why do we need AR-15s? Why do we need those guns to be available for private sales? Why do we need them to be available
Because,
at
and
gun
the reason
shows?
that I have one or two of them rather,
I know, but why do we
is,
need them? Why do we
well,
need them to be available?
for starters, despite common misconceptions, one, people do hunt with them. Two, if I had to protect myself from whatever the situation is, whatever the thing is, who is to say how many rounds of ammunition that I may need to protect myself, given that mass violence happens on a mass level, increasingly so in a lot of places, a lot of the time. And when you do things like put a magazine ban in place that says you can only have a 10 round capacity magazine, it may take more than that to put somebody down. That's done by people that have never done any type of training or police work or any of that business. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know gun nomenclature. They're not from the gun culture. So if I have to use an AR-15, and God forbid that I should ever have to be in a bad enough situation where I have to use an AR-15 to protect myself. But more and more so, the society is getting crazier and crazier. And when you restrict the way people can arm themselves and protect themselves, you're making victims out of, and it really starts affecting poor people because it makes guns and things that are out there more and more expensive. So a single mom can't afford to go get a handgun because they cost so much, because the demand.
There's probably not a lot of single moms out there buying AR-15s. I'm sure there's a few.
Maybe not an AR-15, but maybe a Glock 19 with a 15-round magazine.
We're not talking about Glock 19s.
Common as water. Okay, so AR-15. If a homeowner, if a family man of, father of two, thinks he needs to protect himself, who am I, or who is the government or anyone else to tell him how he can and cannot protect himself? And
if his AR-15 is far more likely to harm if his gun is statistically far more likely to harm someone in his household.
That is completely, again, that's one of those things, like roving, that is completely untrue. That there are no FBI statistics on that. That is another one of those things that has been repeated over and over again. So
statistics are pretty limited because the NRA is so powerful as a PAC. They're one of the top 3 consistently over the last 40 years as far as fundraising. And so they have basically kneecapped any attempt to study gun violence in that way. You can
find a lot of this on the FBI's information, which if you go to the FBI's
it's
website,
limited though. It's not as studied as if.
Well, for instance, there's another myth out there that more people are killed each year by 22s than any other caliber. That is a myth that has been standing for.
I haven't said that. I don't know that. I've never heard that.
I'm just throwing that out there as an example of another myth that people believe. It's a myth. It's not true. People think that you're a million times more likely to injure yourself or a loved one if you have a gun for home defense than you would be an intruder. Absolute total BS. It's not true. It's just something.
I'm going to study up on this and get back to you because.
Okay. You're welcome to. I will do the same. But I did notice differences in the way the media treated the mass shooting in Atlanta versus the one in Boulder. Different narrative. I try to jump on the same narratives, and oh, wait a minute, oh shit, we had to delete our Twitter tweets and all of that.
I don't know what you're talking about. You don't read Twitter, so
a former president who shall remain nameless had to take a tweet down. So
go ahead and say what you're saying. And if you bring up Hillary Clinton's emails, I'm hanging up on you.
We've beat this horse to death.
No, you started to say something, so go ahead and say it.
I'm good. We've danced around this landmine enough. We're not going to agree on that. There is no law out there on the books or no knee-jerk reaction that would have prevented this. An armed society is a polite society, and I'm not saying.
Here's my thing: when you say that, tell me another country that has mass shootings like ours. I'll wait for you.
Mass shootings, but crime in Australia went up when they banned their guns. So
mass shootings. I'm talking about mass shootings.
Okay.
Tell me another country that has mass shootings like ours.
That's fair, but a person, and I'm not sitting here saying that if I would have been there, that it would have been different. I do not want anybody to interpret that this way or interpret this that way. What I'm saying is, if more people were legally armed and carrying weapons in a society and in a world that we live in where mass shootings do happen, there would be fewer mass shootings because someone could stop them. 10 people died because nobody stopped that guy. And the first guy,
10 people died because a guy had an AR-15 and he slaughtered him.
And who had to show up? A guy with a gun who also got killed.
A police officer.
What stops a bad guy with a gun? A good guy with a gun.
A police officer.
Laws do not, well, okay. And I don't mean this to sound bad, and I don't mean this to sound, whatever, but okay, so we're going to let police officers protect ourselves 100% of the time, and nobody else walking around there should have the right to protect themselves had they been in that same situation. You and I have stood under the same awning with 30 guys that would have the outcome of that situation would have been completely different.
So to go back to, and I hear you, to go back to Australia, Australia, when they instituted their gun control,
Hmm.
homicides went down 9% in the first year. There were minor assaults that increased.
Hmm.
Homicides went down 9%.
And where are you getting that from?
I am getting that from Australia's website on guns. I can
Ah,
send it to you.
okay.
So
I'm gonna dig up some. I'm gonna have to work on that too.
there was a Facebook post that went around telling
Oh no,
that
this was in
Australia's,
the '90s. This was way before Facebook.
because starting in 2009, there was a Facebook post that went around about Australia and how their violent crimes had increased substantially because guns were outlawed. And it was just a Facebook post. It was some dumbass
No. This was
creating a meme.
this
So
was going back to the '90s. This is back before Facebook, before social media,
no,
before the
I
internet.
understand what you're saying, but
Right.
I'm saying that their violent crime did not and their murders did not go up. So just wanted to put that out there. Well, what
Cool.
else do you want to talk about?
Are we done with that one?
Oh, I can talk all day about it.
Please. Oh, we can. We're not going to agree on it.
No, we're obviously never going to agree. I think lives are more important than guns. That's just me. What else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I've got several things. You got something you want to throw out there?
DC statehood.
Okay.
What are
How you
your
feel about
thoughts?
I'm against it.
Why?
Because the reason it was done that way, and I agree with this. Maryland ceded that land, and I think Virginia may have too, but Virginia eventually got theirs back. That land to the federal government specifically so that no one state would have influence over the federal government to the degree that, you know, this land belongs to us and you have to bend to our will. So I would have a real problem with, for instance, if they move the capital to, I don't know, Kansas, because it's in the middle of the country, let's say, and then Kansas is running the ins and outs of it. It belongs, DC doesn't belong to the residents of DC. It belongs to everyone. It belongs to all of America. So every citizen in America owns DC. That was the way it was set up. That was the way it was supposed to be. Now DC statehood has been talked about at least since I lived there, and I'm sure before then, you know, as well.
Right.
It's just hot now. It's come up again. It resurfaces. They wanted statehood. They wanted senators, and I think they would get, population wise, they'd get like a congressman or two. I don't remember how that works. But it's specifically states in the Constitution that DC is to be, it was the federal city. It's federal property. All of DC belongs to, which means us. So it's not supposed to be a state. It never was intended to be a state. So it prevents shenanigans. It is designed that way to prevent shenanigans and people from taking advantage of them being the capital.
I understand that back in 1790, but it's 2021 and we've changed a couple of things since 1790, including with amendments to the Constitution, right?
Sure.
You could vote today when you couldn't vote back then.
Right.
I could vote today when I couldn't in 1790.
Sure.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things that have changed because we've progressed and moved forward. I think the seat of our government is more than a location or a zip code. I think it's actually bigger than that. And I also think it boils down very simply to the citizens of DC, which is not a small number, are literally taxation without representation. They have one non-voting delegate in the House, which is a
by the way, during one year had the highest travel expenses of any other congressman in the U.S. Congress, and they lived in that town.
That doesn't mean that DC shouldn't have representation. So they're U.S. citizens, they should have representation. To me, it's as simple as that. Majority of America wants DC to have representation. 86% of DC residents want representation. I think they should have it. I think that we are advanced enough that they could have that without having an oversized presence or untoward influence over the government. I think that Republicans are against it because DC is primarily Democrat. But as you often point out, that could change. And I would still, if it was primarily Republican, honestly, I still think people should have representation.
They have that option right across the line in Maryland, which is literally right there, and Virginia. It's like living in the town you live in and complaining that you don't live in Monument. It's literally right there. So
no, it's not that. That's a poor argument.
I understand. How so?
You live in the United States, you should be represented. You shouldn't have to move to a different county to be represented.
I trust the founding fathers and the design that they came up with at the time for the federal city to be set up as it was than I do any person, including any Republican living today, any of them, to change that with regard to turning Washington, D.C. into a state. Thomas Jefferson himself had more brain power than the entire collective of our Congress combined as it sits right now. And if that was, if it
no,
was
so we should go back to you and I not voting and slaves then.
If it was to be set up where, because at one time it was in New York, and then the southern states decided that it should be in, Virginia should be in a warmer climate, and they went back and it was in Philadelphia and all that. It's been in 2 or 3 different places. It was in Philadelphia and New York. I know for a fact. It was specifically set aside. Maryland very generously gave that land to specifically carve that out so that no one city or state or entity controlled it. And I'm sorry, I've seen the city of DC, how they run things, and I don't see that there being a point to them becoming a state. I don't see how that's going to improve anything at all. That's not going to improve anyone's life.
It's not improving, it's representation.
And if they want that representation,
you're saying they should be required to
they can. It's like if I wanted to live in a state with higher taxes or lower taxes or whatever benefits, it's part of living in the United States. If I wanted to live in a state that had ocean property, I can do that. I can move. If you want to live in a state, if you want to live in an area outside of DC where you have 2 senators and however many Congress folk they have, it's literally right there. DC
no, I understand. I know geography. I get it.
It is a tiny. It's a pinpoint.
So you're okay with our citizens not having representation, but being taxed?
They choose to live there. And a person in DC complaining about taxes, that's kind of like the devil complaining about heat.
I'm not saying they're complaining about taxes. I'm saying that if you pay taxes,
goes into that town than ever comes out of it.
If you pay taxes, you should be represented. End of story. It's very simple. And our forefathers got a lot of things wonderfully right. They were amazing in so many ways. They got a lot of things not so right, and things have changed over time. And like I said, if you want to go back to their time, then you don't get to vote. You don't get to vote.
If going back to what you said earlier, if DC was primarily a red area, this wouldn't even be an issue, and the people that are for it now would be dead set against it. If DC
we can make up imaginary
well, I mean, I'm just saying, if that were Trump country, I guarantee you that the people screaming for it now would not be. So,
but the people, you would be screaming for it.
Even
if it was Trump country, you would be
Republican stronghold. I would still be against it being a state. It doesn't matter if it were 99% red. I would be completely against it being a state. I am against DC statehood in all forms.
Yeah.
No matter who runs it.
We're going to disagree about a lot. I am 51 for 51. Yeah.
51 for 51?
Yeah, they need 51 votes to make DC the 51st.
Well, I've yet to see much come out of DC lately and just ever. So do you think So today, I did hear that Biden appointed Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, in charge of the border situation. Have you heard that?
I did not hear that.
That I mean, I like literally like an hour or two ago. So maybe you may not have come across your radar.
Border situation's a train wreck, and you're going to be hard pressed. And I know that Republicans think that Democrats are like, open the borders, let everybody come over. That's not at all what it is. It's like saying Democrats want abortions after birth. It's a stupid argument meant to inflame people. Most Democrats I know are not okay with the situation at the border now. It's a hot mess, and people need to be held accountable. That being said, it will get better, and people are trying to step up, are trying to do things. So we'll see. We still don't have as many people coming over the border as we did in 2019. The height of, and it may increase to the point where it surpasses that. I can't say in a week. I may be out of date and wrong. But as of this morning, the highest numbers we've had in, I think, 16 years were in 2019. So yeah, it's a hot mess. Journalists are upset about it. They're not being allowed in.
Yeah,
Democrats are upset about it. Democrats are upset about it. Everybody's calling for change. So I think it will get better. I think
this is why this is me personally. We're going to have to sit down. The adults in the room are going to have to sit down and come up with a policy, whatever that policy is, and say, okay, to come into the United States, you've got to be A, B, and C. And if you come here and you're outside of these rules, you can't come in. And when you come in, we're going to check you for medical stuff, and we're going to make sure you're not carrying some disease that we cured 50 years ago or whatever the thing is. And you're going to have to report at certain times and be in these certain places. The way they did it.
Okay, I have to take offense to that because that's a trope that's not okay. By and large, which part? Diseases that migrants and illegal or undocumented,
if they're coming from
immigrants, you say they're carrying diseases, that's a I
didn't say all of them. I said no. If they checked. Okay, so the reason that goes back to anybody that ever visited Ellis Island, and I have went to Ellis Island. There were holding cells that make what they're staying in down there on the border look like Hiltons. If you came across to the United States in those days, you came across the Atlantic and you had cholera, for instance, you were put in a holding cell. I've been in jail cells.
It's 2021 and we're not Ellis Island. So to say that they're carrying diseases,
my point
is an unacceptable trope to start with. I'm
not saying they're all carrying diseases. I'm saying if they are, and some of them, a percentage of them are.
What diseases are they carrying?
They could be, even if it's just COVID, the flu, the sniffles. I want to know.
Okay.
Or the measles, anything, chickenpox, whatever. We need to know before we let them in. My point is, in the days of Ellis Island rocking and rolling, there was a policy. It was written down, and it didn't matter who was president. It didn't matter who the Congress folk were. There was a policy, and we went by that. And so the adults in the room need to sit down and come up with a list or a policy that says, when you come into this country, you have to go by these rules, and you have to do this, this, and this. And if you have one disease on this list or whatever the situation is, you have to be quarantined for X amount of time. So, and if you come here,
if you're talking COVID, I hear you. But if you're
or anything that is communicable,
you just are towing a really uncomfortable line when you say carrying diseases.
I don't believe so. I'm trying. It would be to prevent. I mean, back in the day,
they're not bringing plagues over the.
I didn't say they were, but some of them have been. I mean, to say that, okay, so you're saying 100% of them are healthy, none of them, they're all disease free.
No, I'm saying you're towing a racist line, saying if they're carrying diseases,
they're not. How is that racist? Anybody that comes, I promise you, if you go to Europe for any length of time, or if you go to a lot of other places, you have to get shots. You go to Africa, you got to get shots.
Okay, if you go to Europe, you don't have to get shots.
If you're going to
Maybe
stay
now
there,
with COVID. Maybe now
you're
with
going to be a
COVID.
citizen. If you're going to be a citizen of a lot of places, it isn't racist. This is not pointed at anybody.
Okay,
This
but
is
I want to
pointed
clarify, like
this is
if you're
pointed
going,
at everyone. This is
if you're
pointed
going
at
to Europe, if you're going to Asia, you don't have to get shots. If you're
This
going
is-
to South America, you don't have to get shots. If you're going to parts of the Middle East or parts of Africa, you have to get shots so that you don't get diseases that are carried there. They don't stop you at the gate and ask you when your last TB test was. Like, they don't do that.
So I
So-
do not see how it is racist when this is what I'm saying is there needs to be a policy for all people, every direction that the compass needle points to, whatever country they come from, no matter what skin tone or religion they are, or sexual preference, or anything else I may have left out, it needs to be checked either at JFK Airport, the port of San Francisco, Laredo, Texas, wherever it is, to make sure that these people coming in do not have, let's just start with communicable diseases. And let's find out if maybe the children are with their biological or guardian or whatever. Let's check on this first. Let's have a set of rules somewhere, because I promise you that the people that hate this more than anybody are the people that I know that have come here legally, that have had to deal with becoming a citizen that takes 10 to 12
That's
years.
right. You have two Ukrainian friends, right?
Of BS, a lot of Hispanics too, that came here legally, jumped through the hoops, and then somebody else gets to skip ahead and just let their kids go to the schools and do whatever. I'm not saying that we eliminate any one group. That would be racist. You're right. I'm saying,
okay, so thank you
apply
for
to
saying
everybody.
San Francisco and New York, because at first you were just talking about the southern borders.
No, I
That's what
wasn't.
we were talking about. Well,
I
that's what
said
we were
Ellis
talking
Island.
about.
I was talking about Ellis Island earlier, and who came through Ellis Island? Europeans. And
But
we blocked them if they had
where's the
cholera.
immigration crisis right now? When we started talking about this, where were we talking
Okay,
about?
so and a good percentage of those people aren't coming from Mexico. They're coming from Central and South America
Oh, I know
and
that.
Africa and Europe. There have been people from other countries caught. They're not these are not people
But
from
you
Tijuana
didn't
coming
start
across.
out talking about San Francisco. So you started out talking about the
Would
southern
you
border,
agree that
correct?
people would you agree or disagree that people have immigrated into the United States in the San Francisco port area?
Not to the same
Primarily
extent.
from Asia.
And
So
not what you started out talking about. We started talking about the
I-
border crisis. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the
if there
southern
were
border?
a set national policy, it wouldn't matter if they came through San Francisco, Laredo, Texas, or New York,
Right.
or Florida, or anywhere else, because the policy would apply to everybody.
So I said, thank you for clarifying, because when you start talking about the southern border, and that's what we're talking
I
about,
want
and
the
you say they have
Canadians
diseases.
checked too. Let me be
Okay.
clear. I want
Okay.
the lily white, opaque skinned, French or English speaking Canadians checked as well.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that.
That's why we need a set policy that no matter who the president is, no matter if he's red or blue, left or white, or left or right, every person that comes in has got to, if you want to come here to be a citizen, if you're coming here to play World Cup or whatever, and you're on a 5-day vacation thing or whatever, that's one thing. If you're coming here to live and be a citizen, there's some hoops you're going to have to jump through. Especially if your kids are going to be going to school with the rest of the kids that have already had their shots or may not have had their shots, especially with COVID. So
if we're talking school children,
Mhm.
depends on the state. Most children have to have shots, no matter where they're from, no matter whether they're undocumented or they were born here. Most kids have to have shots. States can differ, but most kids can't get through the door without shots. So you can rest easy on that one.
Seen that. Well, okay. I have seen an exception to that made for a family. They were white. That was, they had I don't remember what religion, they had a different faith.
Yes.
And
And so, like I said, there
their
are
kids-
exceptions depending on the state. There's religious
Mhm.
exemption in most states.
Mhm.
You have to fill out forms for religious exemptions. And depending on the school, they can actually say, we choose to have you school somewhere else. Depends on the school.
It'd be hard to do that with a public school. I don't
It
think you
can
can
be
do that at a
done.
public school.
So religious exemptions and medical exemptions are available in most states. And actually, I don't know if they're available in all states, but they're a very small percentage. So that's not, your kids aren't going to be going to school with kids, like thousands of kids who haven't had the measles shot. Like, that's silly. They're not going to be going to school with 10 kids who haven't had the measles shot. You're good.
Think so? So
Yeah.
we just open up the border and let everybody in, no matter
That's
what.
not what I said, and that's
in.
what Republicans think.
We got room for
Republicans,
everybody.
if I listened to what Republicans said about me, I'd be like, damn, I guess I want the borders to all be open and I want to just invite them all over to my house.
Well,
And
would
I
you
also want to
agree
have
or disagree
abortions,
that-
and I also want to have abortions after birth.
well,
Like,
would
that's
you
what
agree
I
or
would
disagree
believe.
that
Could
for
you let me
anybody
finish my
coming into the
sentence?
country, would you agree or disagree that for anybody coming into the country for any period of time, we might ought to have a set of rules?
A set of rules?
Sure.
There already are a set of rules.
Right. But so if you skip that,
Just a sec.
if you
Just
come
a
across
sec.
the border illegally and are detained,
Can you hold that thought and stop talking for a sec?
sure. Is there a dog issue going on?
Yes, there's a dog and a kid issue. So
I'm going to sit here and use radio voice while Robyn
oh
takes care of it.
fuck, I'm gonna hang up.
Oh, what? Oh, sorry. I'm trying
sure
to
he's
not have
gonna-
dead air while you take care of the dog situation.
No. So obviously, don't be an asshat. I think there should be rules.
Uh-huh.
There should be rules. You're not going to catch me saying, let them all in. That's stupid. No one's saying that. Literally, no one's saying that.
Okay.
Like, you can say sure and be...
No.
No one is saying that. You show me
I'm not.
with facts, someone in power who is saying, let them all in.
Okay.
That's ridiculous. That's a lie. It's
Okay.
not true.
Okay.
But we need to figure out what to do with them. And for everybody who's like, send them all home, really? Really? Because I'm pretty sure that if you sent everybody home tomorrow, your costs would go up substantially because you can't pay most Americans enough money to go pick strawberries for 16 hours a day, 12 hours a day. You can't pay American citizens enough to be in meatpacking plants. Like, if you want everybody to go home tomorrow, you're going to have big issues. So what do we do?
So you're saying that these people coming across the border are here to do menial labor and meatpacking jobs?
By and large, if you look at agriculture and you look at meat industries and several other industries, they can't find American citizens to do those jobs. Colorado had a grant program several years ago where they wanted to pay, a premium amount to people who could prove they were American citizens in the agricultural field. We have peaches and melons in certain areas of Colorado. They literally rotted in the fields as the farmers rushed to try to find the day laborers that they normally would have relied on because they could not find people. Like, it was a miserable failure. It was meant to be this huge shining light of a program to show that Americans wanted these jobs. They could not get Americans to take these jobs.
So then hypothetically, if we had a policy that said you're coming here to work or attend a sporting event or whatever, you're going to be here 90 days and you're going to go to the area I'm sitting in right now is a good example of this. Very high Hispanic population in this region because there's a lot of agriculture here, a lot of fruit, a lot of migrant workers come through here. A lot of them come through here legally. They live here for a given period of time. They work on certain farms and they go back. I've had several of my landowners that I deal with that's what they do. I have no problem with that, but they are by and large, these are people that come here. Most of them pay taxes. They come in here legally. They're good people. They do what they're supposed to do. Some of them have stayed over. I've spoken to several of them that start businesses and become citizens and do all that. And that's great. That's what this place is for. By this place, I mean America. So if that is the case, and if we need people to do certain jobs, whether it be in the tech industry doing, we need programmers, so we need to let these people in, or we need people to pick fruit, that's fine. Cool. We need to have a policy that says when you come here, these are the rules and these are the things you have to abide by. You don't just get to come in and I've got a kid with me and so I get to stay here. So, I mean, if I know Texas alone would probably drop their prison population by a third if they got rid of, if they were able to get rid of just the illegals that are there.
Texas would probably drop their prison population by a third if they quit prosecuting for marijuana and nonviolent crimes.
The illegals that I came across in the prison system were not in there they were not there for marijuana and nonviolent. These were on the Ferguson unit. Nobody's in there for a nonviolent offense.
I'm not talking about the Ferguson unit. I'm talking about it at large. At the end of the day, immigration's broken. We need to fix it. Fixing it doesn't mean shutting off the spigot. Fixing it means looking at the big picture, looking at what we have done in Central and South America to create unrest. Do we need a Marshall Plan that we help infuse money into those, not just blindly into the leaders of the country, but into the countries to create infrastructures that they no longer want to come here? Yes. Do we create pathways for dreamers who have been here their entire lives, don't speak Spanish, don't need to get pushed to a country they don't know? Yeah, we do. Do we need to create pathways for temporary workers, visas that they can come and go? Yeah, we do. There's a lot we need to fix.
100% agree with all that. I'm not sure that I would be in favor of a Marshall Plan for every country in the world that we need to fix.
I didn't say Marshall Plan, but we have broken quite a few countries in Central and South America, and anybody who looks at a history book can see that our
sure,
hands.
And a lot of that was done in the the 70s and 80s.
And we're seeing the fruits of those labors.
Sure.
So do we need to? Yeah. So do we need to fix what we broke? We need to have a hand in it. Does it mean we need to Marshall Plan every country in the world? That's not what I said. No.
So
do we need?
I mean, for instance,
Honduras, Guatemala.
Sure. Any of the Central and South American countries that are problematic for people coming through Mexico, who, by the way, actually, Mexico has been being very good and cooperative about trying to control the situation. So
Mexico is simply the stopping point. And so, we need to look at what we did in those countries. We need to remedy it. We also need to recognize that the pandemic played a part in it. There were some historic storms that didn't make our news, but devastated a couple of those countries.
Yep.
We need to look at that stuff. And I'm not suggesting that we try to fix every country in the world. That's not it. We could at least play nice and fix what we broke, because we really are seeing it come around.
It's possible, and I think we've beaten that one pretty good. I definitely not in favor of turning the spigot off. We definitely need people here. There's a reason we have immigration and people and migration, people that come and go quite legally, and our society, we do as a society need them for various things, to include the medical field and coding and everything, a lot of stuff outside of manual labor.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of
people
fields
here, but there have to be rules. There have to be.
And if you expected me to say that I agreed with what's going on at the border right now, I don't. I'm disgusted by it. I think most people are. I think that's one thing we can agree on is it's not okay. It's not acceptable.
So we round them up. They got to go stay on Ellis Island, and then New York can deal with them. That was an attempted humor.
It wasn't a very good one.
Come on now.
I appreciate the attempt.
Come on now. Cuomo can't deal with them. He wrote a book on leadership, for crying out loud.
Dude. Just a sec.
Okay. I'm going to speak while Robyn is on mute. She's dealing with an issue. I don't even know if y'all can hear me right now. Robyn, bless her heart, has been dealing with the dogs. Are you back?
Yeah, and I swear to God, if you start talking about Cuomo or Hillary Clinton's emails again, I tell you, I'm hanging up.
You haven't heard me mention Hillary Clinton's emails in 2 podcasts.
A week.
Very, very long time. I haven't seen much of those folks lately in the news
Good,
since
because we're watching real news now. So,
well, of course. Well, I try to. I was listening to the radio today mostly, which again, I get a lot of NPR. So
I was busy working. So, doggy found a home.
This is important. This is something we do come together on.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Best family in the world. I knew they were actually a good fit. We walked him together on Saturday, and they of course fell in love with him, because how could you not? He's awesome.
Sure.
And then Sunday I took him over there to meet their dogs, and one of their dogs really liked him. The other one's an old, grumpy old lady. She wasn't too keen on him, but she'll come around.
Who was the girl?
One of their dogs, 13-year-old German Shepherd.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't too into him, but the other dog was all about him.
I got you.
But I knew the second I walked into their house, they have dog paintings. I mean, paintings of their dogs. They
like
had
portraits.
Yes, they had slow feeders, which are those feeders they're like puzzle feeders. They had a Tempur-Pedic bed for their German Shepherd that's nicer than any mattress I own. I walked in there and I was like, oh, this is like dog heaven. So yeah, they picked him up on Monday. I cried. They knew. They've been sending me pictures over the past 2 or 3 days that.
So they have him.
Oh yeah. No, he's at their house. Their daughter went out and bought him a bunch of shirts. He's in love with their teenage daughter. He follows her around. Lord. He's sleeping in her room. He's letting her put shirts on him.
I was gonna that dog is having to wear human clothes.
He's loving dog shirts, of course. Yeah, no, he's loving it. Apparently,
did they go with the name? Is it still Brody or
no? It's Jack, and it's Jax for short. And
Jack.
Every picture they have sent me, he looks like he is just in doggy heaven. So while I am brokenhearted and miss him and the house is quiet without him, I am so excited for him. So,
good deal.
Yeah, happy ending.
So happy ending on the dog finding a home. Yay.
Yeah, and it's a great home. So
good deal. Yeah, you talk about puzzle thing to get food. That's better than. Sounds like he's got it better than most people have it. So that's awesome.
Seriously, I walked in and I was like, oh yeah, these people are dog people. Like, I don't have to do a quote unquote home inspection that we're supposed to do. I'm like, nah, you're good.
I was in a custom home one time that was specifically built, customized for a cat owner, and the cats could go in these little cubbies and go up inside the walls of the house, like where the studs and the drywall and all that would be. Between the walls of the rooms, there were like little tunnels and stuff for the cats to chase each other and run through. Yes, ma'am. So
okay, that's awesome.
Unless the cat
dies.
Do what?
That would be awesome unless the cat had a stroke or something.
Exactly right. So Fluffy gets in there and maybe she ate too much or whatever, or just dies of natural causes. It's just her time.
That would suck.
That wouldn't go too well. But and you couldn't do that for a dog because you take a
they'd eat through the drywall.
Well, not only that, but like just a rambunctious Labrador or something that's just all energy, they would destroy something like that, and you wouldn't see it because it would be inside the walls. They would be completely destroyed.
No, that's a cat thing. That's actually super cool.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta go talk to my boy. He just got home.
I gotta go fold my laundry. So
you have fun with that.
Hold your jealousy, but I ran out of workout clothes, so I had to wash some midweek.
All right, you go fold your laundry.
I will. Well, thank y'all for listening, and as usual, Robyn is correct.
Ryan is right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.